Our distinguished panelists will be addressing the critical issues and drivers of the debate. We'll be discussing today, we have an opportunity to discuss today, future growth trends in food versus fuel. The trends that we'll be discussing today will touch the issues on land stocks or land availability, and how can we reconcile the production of food and energy in the same landscape. Can we continue to grow? Can we continue to produce bioenergy in a sustainable manner? I would say that during the last 30 years, never in the history of human beings, we managed to produce as much as food, as proteins, as we are doing now, with such a lower production cost and improving productivity. Just to give you an idea, during the last 30 years, we have been seeing an increase in productivity in sugarcane almost 2% a year during the last 30 years, which is not an insignificant amount of changes that we are doing and we are pursuing because improving practice in agriculture, because of improving practice of the use of water, fertilizers, better management schemes. But the challenge that we are posing now is, can we continue to grow? And most importantly, who's going to be doing the necessary investments that will be able to produce food, to continue to grow in terms of quality of this growth, not only in terms of volume, but also in terms of quality. So today, some of these issues will be addressed and debated by our distinguished panelists. The first one is our colleague from European Commission, Fabian Delcros, who is working here and worked at the EU Commission in Geneva since 2006. So he will be sharing with us his views and the views of the of Europe, mainly on the critical issues on the food versus fuel. And then I will pass to Ismael Perina from ORPLANA, and then Ron Litterer from the Corn Growers Association, and then finally to Alexandre Strapasson. I will introduce each of these speakers later, but basically what we'll do today is try to ask our colleagues here is to keep under our 15-minute limit of presentation, so then we have quality time also for questions from the audience. So the first speaker, please, Fabian, thank you for accepting also the invitation and being here with us. He has a master's degree in public law from the University of Panthéon in Paris, and a master's on trade from Georgetown University. Thank you, Fabian. Yep.
Thank you very much, Baral. And I'll try to stick to the timeline and stay as far as I can from the microphone. I hope that's okay for you, for the translators, and that you can hear me. First of all, I want to thank UNICA for this great opportunity to again have another open debate about the opportunities and the risks of producing biofuels and moving towards a low-carbon economy. Here in Europe, I must tell you that we went through the debate of sustainability for almost 3 years. We have had an extensive debate with our member states, within our member states, with the industry, with all stakeholders, the NGOs, consumers, etc. And we were so much open that we even consulted UNICA, can you imagine? So we had substantial contributions from our friend Marcos, Geraldine, and Emmanuel, whom I want to greet today. And we, at the end of the day, produced a final product, which is a new European law that I will shortly describe in the first part. Then I will move to the analysis that we've done on fuel versus food to see if there is really something to care about and to worry about. And finally, in my third part, I will have a look at the EU response to what we have found. But first, let me recap on what we have adopted in terms of regulation last December. And here, and I will take President Clinton's word, Europe is one of the strongest believer and the strongest force behind the move to a low-carbon economy. As President Clinton reminded, amongst the 155 signatories of the Kyoto Protocol, the only countries which are today in a position to match the reduction of carbon emission rates are all from the EU. So we take that very seriously, and we observed that amongst the industrial sector, the most problematic one was transportation. And transportation is the critical sector where emission of gas depletions continues at a significant rate. This is the reason why we adopted in December a specific target as far as transportation fuel is concerned, whereby by 2020, we would need to mix, to integrate into our fuel transport at least 10% of biofuel. And when we had a look at what was available on the market to make that mix, we were forced to conclude that bioethanol is in a very strong position, and that we need not only to produce, but to import this bioethanol. And this has been said very clearly by our President Barroso, who has very openly admitted that we in Europe could grow that ethanol ourselves, but we have no interest to do that. It's not only because we want to be kind with Brazil, but we don't want to transform our entire landscape into sugar beet production. But being open to imports doesn't mean that we would be open to any kind of imports. And it's clear that if, as President Gabrielli from Petrobras indicated yesterday, Brazil or other countries wants to have Europe as the first customer and their first client by 2020, President of Petrobras did show us yesterday that, and this is Petrobras, it's not the European Union, but Petrobras forecasts are a multiplication of export of ethanol to Europe by 10 within the next 13 years, by 10. So it's potentially enormous, and we are in a position willing to import and to have more of your ethanol. But the condition, of course, is that we need to have the guarantees that this ethanol is sustainable, and that's the key word of many panels those days. Sustainable doesn't mean only sustainability as far as environmental is concerned, but also we need to address the concerns, be they legitimate or even misunderstanding, who knows, about our own consumers and citizens about the fuel versus food debate. And here, if you allow me, I want to enter directly into the subject to tell you that we took this debate very seriously. We have conducted various economic analysis ourselves, and we have contracted external professors and economic consultants who basically all came to the same conclusion based on the facts, based on what happened in 2008, based on the last cycle of inflation of food prices. There is no strong evidence of significant participation of biofuel effect on the inflation of food prices. Other factors than biofuel did play the most important role. Indeed, a number of complex causes lie behind the evolution of commodity prices and explain what happened in 2008. The surge of agricultural commodity prices, when you step back and have a look at what happened, resulted from a combination of structural and temporary factors. On the structural side, And if you look at the demand side of the equation, the fundamental factors that explain the surge in the prices were, and this will not come as a surprise to you, global population growth, rising incomes in emerging economies, and the development of new market outlets. On the supply side, we noted that the supply side was unable to keep pace due in large part to a slowdown in the growth of food crop grain yields. Moreover, increasing production costs due inter alia to rising prices of energy spilled over on agricultural commodities. The impact of these structural factors was amplified by large production shortfalls resulting from adverse weather conditions and trade restrictions imposed by several exporting countries. Finally, exchange rate developments, growing speculative activity in the commodity derivative market, and the close relationship between agricultural and other commodity markets, such as the oil market, also affected agricultural commodity price development. These, in our views, were the main factor behind the surge of food prices in 2008. Now, did biofuels play a role? Probably yes, as well. But was this role significant? We didn't find any strong evidence to this effect. In Europe, to talk about what we know better, we noted that the contribution of the various factors did vary depending on the sectors. If you look, for example, at what happened on the wheat and the rice market, this was largely attributable to the supply side factor, and they have not been greatly influenced by EU biofuel policies. But we have to admit that on soybean and corn market, these markets have been driven by the strong growth in global demand, first and foremost for meat product and for meat consumption, and also for industrial use, including biofuel. But as far as the EU is concerned, the contribution of EU biofuel production to the inflation of food prices is negligible, because biofuel use less than 1% of EU cereals production. But now you could ask us, okay, that's the case now, that's the state of play, but what about your 2020 target? Will that impact on food prices? And on that, we made a little bit of simulations, which did show that the consequence of a rising share for biofuel from 1%, which is the case today, to 10% of our fuel transportation will mean basically an impact on cereal price from 3 to 6%, an impact on rapeseed prices from 8 to 10%, and on sunseed by about 15% as compared to 2006. So there are some impacts, yes, but these impacts are not as significant as some were claiming. But Europe is one thing, but we also need to have a look at other countries. And we are concerned, and we are watching out very carefully what could be the impact of a rapid move to biofuel production, especially in developing countries which do have important subsistence farming sectors. And it is true that in some countries, a sudden surge in profitability of a sector can exactly